Speak up so they can hear you. We probably do need to get some microphones. Those for what? It'll work if you speak with some authority.
Used to be some sitting there.
Yeah, it used to be.
Well, it used to be something hanging down. Take it away.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 p.m., so we'll call the meeting in order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, April the 27th. If you would at this time, please rise for our invocation, followed by our pledge.
Lord, bless us all as we enter into this meeting to discuss the happenings that's in Upson County. Bless all these people that have attended, especially the nurses and all the good work they do for the county. All this we ask in your Son, Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
If you join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sounds good. It's been a while since we've had that much volume in the room. All right. Okay, first on the agenda is public comments. So when I call your name, if you would, just please stand, state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. So first is Mr. Gary Self.
My name's Gary Self. I live at 226 Roberts Loop. I stand up to talk a little bit about the Andrew Shepherd School. I realize that I have no idea what y'all are going to talk about, but I can tell you what I feel, how I feel about it. I was a driving force in getting it to the county, and I would like for it to stay in the county's ownership. Now, I've heard about this thing about this trust, and it's going on right down the street. The trust ends up in private ownership's hands. I don't want it to be in private ownership hands. It needs to stay in the county's hands. Now, I know that y'all have been out there and looked at it. I was there with the meeting. It has some shortcomings, but it is a great thing. It is a unique thing, probably in the state of Georgia. It does not need to be in private hands. It needs to be in our hands. Now, it does need some work out there. There has been some discussion with me about getting some donations to help out with the fixing of some of the things that needs to be done out there. But there's no way that anybody is going to donate money or anything to that school and then y'all give it away. So that needs to, really in my opinion, needs to just go away. There's also another thing in that most of the artifacts and most of the interior furnishing belongs to Jimmy McKinley and his family. Now, if you give it away, all of that is going to come out of there and go back to the McKinley family. So what I'm really saying is I would hope that we, in this discussion tonight, that we have some really good feelings among this board to keep it in the county's hands. And once that is proven to me or assured to me that it's going to stay in county's hands, then I will continue to work on this thing about donations to get something done. Yes, the roof needs to be something done to, but a lot of the other stuff is just, the school is itself, and I want it to stay in its pristine state. It does not need to come up to code. It was never up to code, and it don't need to come up to code. That bouncing in that floor in there needs to stay just like it is, because that's the way it was all of the time. The floor is not dangerous. It's not going to fall in, but you need to feel that when you go in there, because that makes it authentic. So basically what I'm saying, and I hope that y'all will, and some of you guys who was on that board when y'all accepted it, when I pushed it as hard as I could, and I would appreciate it if we could keep it in county's hands. When you can know that for sure that you're going to keep it, let me know, and I will start working on those donations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Self. Okay, next is Martha Ann.
Martha Ann McCarty, 408 South Green Street. As your county EMA director, I wanted to let you know, if you haven't heard already, we lost one of our volunteers this week. Bobby Booker served under me as rescue chief for 4 years from 2013 to 2017. Bobby was some of the powder, if you will, to kind of reignite the activity of EMA rescue. It had dwindled down a little bit, and with Bobby's enthusiasm, we kind of got it going again, and he got it going in the right direction. If y'all don't know a whole lot about Bobby, he's a very unusual character. A lot of folks can say a lot of things about him. There's a few stories that are better left unsaid when it comes to some of his antics sometimes, when he wasn't affiliated with EMA, but at the same time, a very good man, very generous man. I found out today something that I had forgotten, that I don't know whether it got in the newspaper or not, but Bobby got an award of valor and accommodation from GEMA in the floods of '94 because of the activity that he worked alongside with Mr. Billy Mincham and Jeff Sanders and some others during that time when the floods inundated us in 1994 from Tropical Storm Alberto. But I just wanted to, I'm headed over to the visitation, and with your permission, I would like to extend the condolences of the Board of Commissioners to his family tonight.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's where I'm headed.
All right. Okay, next, gentlemen, we have the consent agenda. On the consent for tonight, we have the March 30th joint meeting of the 2022 SPLOST. We have the April 7th work session meeting minutes, the April 13th regular meeting minutes, and acceptance of the March 21 financials. Is there a motion on the consent?
So moved.
Is there
I have a quick, can we remove item D, pull it out and have it under for general discussion? The March financials?
Okay. As you may. I mean, I think for that, all it takes is one commissioner just to request it. So we'll take item D and move it down under new business and go from there. So is there a motion on the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Just, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Since we've got a crowd here tonight, we'll do that next if the board will allow, and we'll do the financials next. Let's do something fun. So, we got a crowd here tonight because it's recognition of was it National Nurses Week?
Yes.
Week. It's only a week. There's so many of you here. You'd think everybody get their own day. Okay. Well, if you'll just allow me, then I'll read this proclamation, and then we'll get a photo or something, either after the meeting, or we can come up here and try to do it at the new social distance standards and do whatever. So I'll read this. This is a proclamation from the Board of Commissioners for Upson County, whereas 4,096,607 registered nurses and 120,655 licensed practical nurses, licensed vocational nurses in the United States comprise our nation's largest healthcare profession. And whereas the depth and breadth of the nursing profession meet the different and emerging healthcare needs of the American population in a wide range of settings. And whereas the American Nurses Association, as the voice for the nurses of this country, is working to chart a new course for a healthy nation that relies on increasing delivery of primary and preventative health care. And whereas the renewed emphasis on primary and preventative health care will require the better utilization of all our nation's nursing resources. And whereas professional nursing has been demonstrated to be an indispensable component in the safety and quality of care of hospitalized patients. And whereas the demand for nursing services will be greater than ever because of the aging American population, the continuing expansion of life-sustaining technology, and the explosive growth of home health care services. And whereas that more qualified nurses will be needed in the future to meet the increasingly complex needs of healthcare consumers in this community. And whereas the cost-effective, safe, and quality healthcare services provided by nurses will be an ever important component of the U.S. healthcare delivery system in the future, and whereas along with the American Nurses Association, the Georgia Nurses Association has declared the week of May 6th to 12th as National Nurses Week with the theme, The Year of the Nurse and Midwife, we again want to use this opportunity to highlight that all nurses are, have been, and will be in our society. 2021 is a time to celebrate the efforts made by nurses everywhere to improve health conditions globally, recognize and reflect upon the challenging conditions nurses face in practice, whether they are physical, emotional, or mental, and then take strides toward increasing and better caring for the existing nursing workforce. Resolved that the Upson County Board of Commissioners asks that all residents of this state, community, and community honor the nurses who care for all of us, declaring May 6th and through the 12th as National Nurses Week, signed by me on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. I want to try to do a quick photo now before we get into the business. Over there. Trouble hide that squash.
Stand up. I'm short, you won't never see me. You probably won't see me standing up.
Y'all get on behind me.
I had to get in the hole where you can see. Me standing up here, I'm still ain't tall as you.
Good.
Stand on the desk.
Can I get a big smile?
That's all I got.
Are you the sky one?
Thank you so much.
Can we take one of the school nurses from school right quick? Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. That would be awesome.
Will you give that one?
The other side of you. Y'all should be nice. We go back and y'all are awesome. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all.
Really appreciate everything you do.
We appreciate y'all more.
We could have done it.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say something to them before they get out of here.
Hey, if I could for just a second.
Real quick, I just would like to say this as a representative of at least one of you I know right here, and of District 2, and personally myself, thank y'all for what y'all done and what you'll continue to do. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Y'all can stick around, man. We got some fun stuff to talk about. Financials. Right.
They trust you have it. That's even better.
Man, there goes all the audience, Gary.
All the energy. It's just us again.
Gary, you got it. Mr. Self, you need to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta recruit some folks.
He's doing his best. You need to let Miss Fagan and them know. We over
Yeah,
there.
yeah, back, be good to see Miss Fagan back in here on that, our May 11th.
Let's send her a card. We all sign.
All right, we can do that.
Welcome.
I'll get one, we'll get one of the notes and everybody sign it and make sure we expect to see you here. Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the acceptance of the March 2021 financials. And Jason, you want to?
Yeah,
Tee it up
if I
there.
could, I'd love to tee it up. Mr. Chairman, our new finance director, Alan, has taken a hard look at the report that you were getting in the past, and with some collaboration and discussion. I think we both agreed that he wanted to try to present the financials in a more meaningful way to you, something that might actually spark a little more dialogue between staff and board when it came to the acceptance and the review of the financials monthly. So he's been working diligently to come up with what you see in front of you, and I anticipate that with some feedback from you that will continue to change until we find the most suitable format. So I would not submit to you that what you're looking at is how it will be going forward. It will continue to evolve until everyone's comfortable with it. But I for one, am really glad that Alan tried to tackle this in his first couple of months on the job. I agree with him wholeheartedly that what is presented to you here is more meaningful and easier for you to look at, and may potentially help generate more questions and more interaction between your staff. So I look forward to him just giving you a few highlights of what he's presented and what he's trying to get across to you. And then you may have some questions about the data itself. We'll do our best to answer those. But with that, I would just turn it back to the chair.
When, just real quick, and that's the main reason why I asked to pull it out. No specific question, but one, it looks great, and because it is new, I thought it'd be good just to get an overview, kind of a quick run through of the new format, just so when we are looking into them, we can follow it easier.
Sure, yeah. Well, just as Jason was talking about, certainly all of those were my goals. The other was to try to limit the size of the information. I think our February report was 54 pages in length, and that's quite cumbersome to try to go through, particularly on a monthly basis. This is still quite long, so certainly as you go through it, you may decide that, well, we don't need this much detail, and if we do, we'll ask you for it. To do a further drill down. So again, any comments, all comments are welcome. What I tried to do was, one is present to you and start at the very top with the 30,000 foot flyover, so to speak, of here's a snapshot of where we are. Now, the main focus is on the revenues and expenditures. There's a little bit of balance sheet focus on the first page, but most of it's on the revenues and expenditures, and quite obviously there's a good reason for that. And so I kind of start out with the main financial highlights, focusing primarily just on the primary government or governmental activities, which include the business type activities of the water and waste departments. And then I continue on with the highlights because I do think we should, and these numbers obviously will grow, there should be a focus on capital expenditures as part of our financial highlights, to give you an idea of what we've spent, and of course a nice little pie chart helps you to see it, give you a nice picture to see where all the spending is occurring. And my goal is to present capital expenditures not just being funded out of SPLOST, but wherever they may come from, whether they're coming straight from a department's own budget, or they're coming from treasury funds that we are, will soon get, to give you the whole big picture of what we're spending on. And when I say capital, I may have to fine tune that. It's not just buildings. This is everything, hard assets, that we would capitalize on our books and records as a fixed type asset. Of course, I want to talk about SPLOST and bring that up. That's important. I do have an error on here. The SPLOST bond sinking fund receipts were $946,000 approximately instead of the 1.2. I picked up April accidentally there, but we haven't done any 2019 allocations yet to City of Thomaston from the 2019 SPLOST, so there's none presented there.
What is 2019?
It's the T-SPLOST.
T-SPLOST.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, we have a couple of different funds established for 2019. One is just for the bond sinking fund purposes. And then I take a further detailed dive, and you break it down when you look on page 5.
And so I'm dissecting or bifurcating, whatever term you want to use, the primary government, and then showing the major component units. You know, how they're doing in terms of revenues, budget versus actual. The red highlighting, what I wanted to do there was I have it established so that anything, given this was the first quarter, anything in terms if it's a revenue item, anything less than 25% shows up as red. And that's probably, that color probably is not the best color because it creates a lot of, it may create angst, unnecessary angst, but I kind of did that to highlight where we are. If we're not where we expected to be at, this part of the year in terms of what we budgeted, it's something to take note of. And as I go forward with these things, I will have explanations for situations where we have differences. And it picks up the slightest little difference beyond 25%. So some of these items are pretty close. And some of them, when you're talking about revenue, that has a lot to do with timing, just when you think about real estate taxes, so property taxes. And I just go on, I show the revenues first and then the expenditures on page 6 for the primary government and the major component units. And then I drill down into the general fund, as you see on page 7. First, take a hard look at the revenues. And these categories are not, on the revenue side, that stuff I basically built off of looking at our CAFR. This is not how necessarily, there's no report you can print out of our system that'll give you this. So I had to group things based on the account and how they would be presented in CAFR. Do you have a question? Oh. Page 7, or excuse me, page 8, it's general fund again. This time I'm zeroing in on expenditures.
Alan, can I just pause for an example real quick?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, like, so what Alan was describing where he may have highlighted in red, like a good example is that amount expended on budgeted fringe benefits, where we're highlighting that we're at 26.7%, which is over 25%. Well, we just made a rather large contribution to our pension fund, which is the total payment for the year.
Right.
So the timing of these expenditures and or revenues, and Alan made another good example of property taxes. Obviously, we don't collect those till December, and we'll show those as red pretty much all year. We'll probably be looking for a more meaningful way to describe that, considering we're not expecting that revenue until December, and it's nothing to be alerted by. But that, just to give you an example of what we're saying.
And also, we're comparing things against budgets, and there is obviously estimation involved with budgeted amounts. Repairs and maintenance, I had put a comment in here, apparently it didn't show, or maybe it's in another place. If you look at repairs and maintenance this year compared to budget, we're at 73%. That has to do with the renovation of the road department shop. That's where those costs are coming from, being paid for out of the general fund.
Which we'll eventually need to amend our budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we'll get the
realize
insurance
the revenue,
proceeds
or the insurance proceeds.
back,
Yeah.
but we won't net it against expenditure. We'll show those as revenue. And then as we go on with the other pages, I discuss water and sewer, and I kind of do water and sewer and solid waste. I do those revenues and expenditures on one page because they are business type activities. And you can kind of see where they're sitting for the year in terms of current year surplus, or hopefully not deficit, but you can see there.
On the water and sewer, what category do we put water that we purchase from the city?
That would be under supplies and materials.
Okay.
And we can certainly break that out. If that was something you'd like to see, I can separate that on a completely different Same approach for solid waste. Of course, obviously, the contractual services figure you see there is what we're paying to, what's the new name?
GFL.
Thank you, GFL. And then pages 11, 12, and 13 will be the component units, full statement of revenues, expenditures, presentation for those three major component units.
And that's just the airport, right?
This one's the airport, next page will be IDA, page 12, page 13, the Recreation Commission. No questions so far? All right. I loop back, may not be the best, I probably should have included this right after I discussed the expenditures for general fund, but on page 14, it takes 2 pages to, get all of this information on. But instead of laying it out by expense category, I show expenditures by department. So you can see how each department is doing compared to budget. And page 16, that's really a very abbreviated version of what you had or were getting in the previous month's financial reports. But this was provided to you in all the detail for revenue, every revenue expense. I think it was either by department or count number, I can't remember, but full 2 or so pages. All I did was just aggregate everything and just give you a 5-year historical look in total without all the minutiae. I did not change anything with respect to the detailed SPLOST reports that's been provided to you. I left that in as is. So it's definitely something we're going to try to improve upon, and also too, it gives us a framework for how we want to, approach the budget process and reporting, do our budget report. That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions for?
No, but I got a comment. Thank you for bringing us up to the 21st century. It ain't just black and white, jumbled up. You bring it out when you ain't got to hunt for it, there it is.
Yes.
Golly, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're worth every dime. Or more.
Wait a second, more. We can factor that into the budget. No, we want to improve upon it. This was the first start. I'm like, golly gee, we can't keep sending 54 pages for you to review in a month. You need something to help you look and see things or trends, or help point things out to you that you should be aware of.
Al, I have a quick question for you here. I see some bank balances, but I'm only seeing one bank, and I know we bank at several different banks.
Okay. That we have splosh.
Yeah, it's just for the splosh, but is it possible that we could have, cause right now I can't tell you how many accounts we have. I know we have several. With most of the banking institutions, is it possible to add that to this report, what our balances are in these accounts?
And all the different bank accounts we utilize.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, is there a particular
No, I mean,
function? Is
right,
it
and
SPLOST or?
tie it into that. I know some departments may use one bank and another department uses a different bank.
Do you want it by bank name and what the balance is, the bank, the fund?
And what it falls under, who Is utilizes it.
You want to know how
Right.
much money's in the bank?
Right, yeah. I mean, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really our number one job. And it's been, is that cumbersome? Is that just?
No. Once we put it together, it won't be that bad.
I'm not sure that that will be the case in the next several months,
For
but
example, like with the general fund, we have multiple bank accounts because you have separate bank accounts.
But you list that general fund right here,
In total.
that's total,
Right.
that's not broken
Yes.
down
I'm
by,
not telling you every bank.
okay. Because that's what I was wondering, so okay.
Yeah, that's just a total general fund cash.
this is our checkbook.
Right. The
Well,
general
we're
fund,
paying
that's
it.
right. That's the total balance in the general fund.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that would be multiple.
Yeah, that,
So because that's all right, so that answers my question. So that includes more than just
One bank.
okay.
Yes.
Because I was under the impression about what I was reading, it was just one bank.
Oh, no, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. It's multiple.
yeah, when you look at reports like that, it's just important to keep in mind that at any given time, one of those accounts probably is either due to or due from another account. So you'll see snapshots of what the balances are, but it won't necessarily, it won't tie to anything you see in the actual financial report, but you can actually see what the balances are at the month end.
Well, the biggest thing is, and it's a given, and I think I used this phrase with Jason earlier today, when we were talking about this, I said, is there anything in here that's keeping you awake at night? So if you ever get to a point where something's keeping you awake at night, I think we all will tell you that we don't want you to be the only one losing any sleep, so let us know, So
Absolutely.
it looks great. Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate that.
All right. All right. Anything else on regarding the financials? Okay, we'll move along. So next is the discussion of the Andrews Chapel School. And I guess I'll tee it up because I asked for this to be put on the agenda because I've had some talks with Jason and and I know we went out there and visited the school that day. I got pulled away because of something, but so we kind of came to a standstill with it. And part of what Jason has, and I guess Jameson, you guys have researched, this Georgia Trust, and so when that got out in the public, it obviously generated some conversations, and so we're exploring all options with long-term sustainability. The only just the M&O of that facility. We did go out there. The roof no longer leaks. It's dried in. But if you go inside, you'll see the residue from where it did get wet. And then the last place we're at on this is Thomas went out and inspected the building and basically says it's not safe. So when I ask things about where are we going with this, I mean Jason's a little frustrated, maybe a little bit. It's like what do you want me to do with it? So I think we as a body need to give staff some direction on where we want to go with this. How long are we going to stay in this holding pattern? So I'm just putting it out there. What are we going to do with this thing? We've got it. Having a building sitting out there that nobody can go in is not doing any good.
Matt,
Absolutely.
jump on that for a sec. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. We can keep the grass mowed and we can make sure that the building doesn't leak, but the whole idea of having an asset like that would be so that people could utilize it. So if staff just thought, well, since we didn't really have authorization to spend any dollars to look at having an architectural engineer do a study of it and tell us what we needed to do to make it safe for visitors, or maybe to prove our building official wrong and say that it is safe. If we, we just needed to do our due diligence on it. So, you know, we didn't get anything necessarily approved by that. So we took the approach, well, there's other entities in the state that their sole focus is to make sure that these properties are sustainable, and that's why we, you know, we took
So
it
give
upon
us-
ourselves to look at other options. So.
Give us an overview of what you've learned about Georgia Trust, because I think there's some misconceptions about what it is and what it does.
Well, and I put a little bit of background about the Georgia Trust in your report, so I'll just read from my report a little bit. And the county attorney and I actually have a scheduled discussion with the Georgia Trust on Thursday via Zoom call. So you know, we'll learn a lot more about their programs when we're actually able to engage them together. Because you know, and I think we do have some concerns or some unanswered questions that I can't answer for you today. But basically, you know, the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation works for the preservation and revitalization of Georgia's diverse historic resources and advocates for their appreciation, protection, and use. So they operate a different, they operate a revolving loan fund. They do own property, but I think their model is for the properties to be in third-party ownership, but under a strict historical preservation covenant. But they claim to be, you know, one of the country's leading statewide nonprofit preservation organizations. They generate community revitalization by finding buyers for endangered properties acquired by its revolving loan fund, and raises awareness for other endangered historic resources through an annual listing of Georgia's places in peril. The trust recognizes preservation projects and individuals with its annual preservation awards. Some of their properties include 2 house museums in Atlanta, Rhodes Hall, or one in Atlanta is Rhodes Hall, and one in Macon called Hay House. They have a complete portfolio of properties on their website, but one of those is here in Thomaston. It's 205 South Bethel Street. So that we do have one of those properties here right here in Thomaston. So what it would take to get it in the program and what would be required of the county to either get it in their hands or take advantage of their revolving loan fund to get some preservation work done on the property. We're not exactly sure how the technical aspects of that work, and we won't until Thursday.
So you know, it's possible that, you know, we can take advantage of a revolving loan fund and while maintaining the ownership of the property.
I'm just not sure.
We don't know that yet.
Yeah, just not sure.
So the gist of it is we're just exploring all options. You know, everything that's out there. So you know, the discussion is not about. I don't think anybody up here has had any conversations about putting a for sale by owner sign or anything like that out there. We're just exploring options, and we certainly wouldn't do anything like that unless we had a lot of community feedback and input on it. But I guess at this point, what I'm asking the board is, you know, while we're doing this research, do we just maintain our current situation where we're cutting the grass and we got locks on the doors? Or should we have somebody else take a look at it? You know, I mean, we've had numbers thrown at us about, you know, a new roof, $50,000. Is that a real good number? Is that a viable number? You know, and then we've had discussions about the foundation and support. I mean, I know nobody's been under it, but you know, just looking at it, I mean, how much do we need to do at this point? I mean,
I think if there's you know, individuals that have interest in, you know, donating to help do some of the restoration, I think that's another avenue that we explore as we're exploring this trust. And just to clarify on that 50,000, the way I understood it, it was like 20-something thousand for the roof, and the remainder was the structure that had to be brought up to code or whatever in order to even get on the roof. But, yeah, I mean, I think as we're exploring the trust and maybe we get some feedback from their meeting Thursday, that we look at, I mean, because it sounds like there's some individuals out there that may want to be a part of some restoration,
Yeah, but
but they need a scope of work.
I've had discussions with one individual who's expressed an interest, and, you know, the only caveat that they placed on it is scope of work and cost. You know, they want to know what they're actually contributing to. And then the other challenge is how to funnel that tax deductible donation to us through another entity, and it would have to be a 501, such as maybe the Historical Society, but, you know, so we need to have that discussion. Is that something the Historical Society is willing to do?
That's, and Mr. Chairman, I'd say that that's the easy part. And we now have a community foundation, so any donation could be passed through any 501 and come straight to us for construction, and someone would be able to benefit from a tax exemption.
So we have someone.
That's the easy part.
Yeah, so we have someone who's expressed an interest in it, but scope of work and cost.
Do we have any reports from that 50,000 number? Any scope of work?
I'd have to go back to some of your previous work session.
Yeah.
That was initial, the roof estimates were based on actual quotes from about 2 years ago on putting a shaker shingle roof on it. But then once we took a closer look at it, and especially once our building official looked at it, he's like, I wouldn't put anybody on the roof, you know, until someone looked at it from an architectural standpoint. Like his recommendation is to have an engineer evaluate it.
So we have a recommendation from staff to have an engineer evaluate the entire building.
You have that if you want to let people in it. If you want to bring it to where I guess our building official would feel comfortable saying, yeah, this is absolutely a safe structure. You know, the other thing, Mr. Chairman, is it's not something we ever really developed programming for. I think the archives does a great job just making people aware of it, and of course they don't really have the staff to manage it. I mean, they essentially, if you wanted to view it in the past, you would go check out the key, and you would go out there on your own and just do sort of a self-guided tour, then bring the key back to the archives when you were finished. I believe that there were a few class trips out there maybe in the past, but we haven't had those at least I don't think we've had them since I've been in this office. So it's not, it being closed is not, we never had any programming with it from the beginning, and we don't get a whole lot of requests to view it. So we've not turned a lot of people away. I could probably get you the actual number from the archives, but Jameson said it's not something that gets visited frequently.
So the process now, that even if somebody want to go and check out the key and go in and take a look at it inside, they can't get in because
yeah, we've advised the archive staff not to
right.
let the key go.
So one of the things that we would need to do, I guess, is to figure out, is to evaluate how much it would take to get the structural sound enough to get the top done. And, you know, with all that being said, what's the total cost gonna be for the structure and to fix the roof, to keep it, get the structure fixed so it'll be sound enough to go in, safe enough, and then get a roof on it. Then we still gonna have to do something with this, with the size and
Well, that's, I mean, I know that was our discussion out there that day.
right.
I mean, the level of work that it may need to take to shore it up could take away from the historical aspect
Right.
of it. And that's my concern.
It looks like the, you know, with the deterioration of the project, of the building, it would definitely take away from the historical value
when we start to trying to shore it up and make it safe to, and fix it so it'll be safe to enter and keep it from leaking. And that's the way it seems to me.
And I'm just speculating a little bit here. I mean, I would maybe somebody on the Georgia Trust, you know, maybe they have a point of contact or somebody who specializes in that type of work. I don't know. So at this point, it sounds like we're still in a holding pattern. Pursue discussions with the Georgia Trust to see what possibilities exist for this. At some point, though, we're going to have to decide, are we willing to pursue investing in an engineering study to see what it's going to take to get this thing up. You know, we need some options. You know, option A may be, okay, new roof, shore it up, get it to where, you know, it's good for 30 years, or, you know, or we, you know, or maybe there's a phased approach, you know, okay, put a new, I would, you know, maybe they come back and say, okay, to get this to a point where people can use it and enjoy it, which is what I believe the community really wants, is, you know, that you need to do A, B, C, and D. And then once you get that done, then here's E, F, G through Z. Give us some, and then, you know, maybe there's monies available through this revolving loan.
If I may just go historically, like I think 2 years ago, we were actually talking about moving it. So I just wanted to remind the board of that too. So I think originally we actually had it on our work plan as like having a master plan, and part of that master plan was finding another location for it. So I know we've kind of come full circle on it.
Well, my concern is this. I mean, obviously, our hopes are to try to preserve the building. And our hopes when we took the building, that was. I've learned some new information here tonight, and I guess we would need to go back and look at the transfer of title on it. But I was unaware that the furnishings in there were not part of the school. They were owned individually. That is concerning to me, because basically now we got someone else's contents inside of the building that we're about to preserve. And two is, you know, we can fix the building. That's great. That's what I love to do. But just fixing the building without having a plan of how we're going to utilize the building, that's going up the hill, walking up the hill backwards. I mean, we got to determine what we want it to be and how we're going to utilize it. I mean, if it costs $150,000 to go out there and bring that building up to code where it's usable, what we're going to do with it then? Are we still going to hand out the key? I mean, we got to have a plan for it. I mean, I just don't want to inadvertently throw some feel-good money at it and not have a plan for it. We got to determine what our plan is, and then we can determine what we're going to do with the building. I think the plan tells you what you got to do and how it's going to be utilized. I don't want to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars repairing it and then it stay locked up. People can't use it. It's not utilized. It sits there for 5 years. We got to repaint it. 20 years down the road, putting a new roof on it. I mean, it's an old building. It's going to require constant maintenance. It's just like our home, and it's even worse than that because nobody's living there. You know, window panes are going to have to be replaced. Paint's got to be painted. You know, foundations. You know, you'd think the foundation would never shift again, but it's going to shift. I mean, so I think we got to have a plan of how it's going to be utilized before we just fix it up and go, oh, well, it's fixed up. That's just my recommendation. And we don't really know what our avenues are until we have this meeting. I mean, there may be grants or loans that we may be able to receive through this foundation that could be an asset to us. I just don't think we have enough information right now. I mean, this is it'd be easy to just say, yep, let's do it. That's how we got here. Let's don't make that mistake again.
Answer your questions? It just created more.
No, I mean, to me, the guidance is the same, and we're looking at, we've discussed a number of options, renovating it in its current site, relocating it. So now the only direction that staff will pursue is further conversations with the trust, bring back the information to the boards. If that's something that you want staff to move forward with, then we can discuss it at that time. But other than that, we'll cut the grass and
Well, I
make
think
sure
to
it's right.
Commissioner Ellington's point too, utilization, maybe, and I'm just spitballing here, I don't have the answers, is we engage Jameson and others on that side of the house and say, okay, we get this thing going, and then how's it going to be utilized? It's a great photo op. It's like a covered bridge. It's covered bridges are great. People ride down, look at them, walk across them, take good pictures. But that's a covered bridge. This is a building with windows and doors and ceiling. How is it utilized? But and maybe it goes to that too. How do we utilize a covered bridge? Do we have if somebody wanted to have a special event down there, they just show up and do it? Do we have a policy on if somebody wants to have a wedding down there, what process would they go through?
Yeah, the covered bridge is just passive recreation. It does require some minimal level of maintenance and upkeep, but it's essentially a park setting. A place to go relax.
To some extent, this building could very well be more like a park setting. It's got some pretty grounds out there. That could be one aspect of how it's utilized, but not everybody needs to go roaming through the inside and all that stuff. So I would just spitball it around with that side of the house and say, hey, give us some ideas on how you utilize this thing.
We need to lean on the experts. We don't need to make up the programming.
Yeah, I don't think we are in a position to make that final decision. But I really don't think that relocation is an option anymore.
Doesn't sound like
because it wouldn't hold up with other movements.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens with your phone call next week or this week, and we'll just go from there. And the individual that has reached out to us, I think he's probably good to go for a little while. I'll stay in contact with him, but I certainly understand his their desires to, hey, if I'm going to do this, what am I doing? Scope of work and cost. Yeah.
And I would think they would want to know what our plan is to utilize it also.
So, okay. All right. Well, this stays on our work list until we figure this out. But anyway. All right. Next on the agenda is an update on the banking RFP.
All right, Mr. Chairman. We have a lot of good news. We just wanted to give you a brief update about where we were in the process, and then I'll let our finance director chime in if he feels like I missed anything. But we're in receipt of 6 submissions, and I'll go ahead and let you know the names of the institutions. Bank OZK, or what we know, Bank of the Ozarks. I guess they've kind of changed their branding to go to OZK. Chase Bank, Colony Bank, Southcrest Bank, Synovus Bank, and U.S. Bank. We currently do business with Colony, Southcrest, and U.S. Bank, so we do business with 3 of the 6 that submitted. After a review, Alan and myself and the team from Davenport, we decided that we were going to interview 4 of the 6 that submitted. So we were going to omit the submission from Colony Bank and omit the submission from Bank of the Ozarks. So we'll be evaluating 4 firms. We're going to do that over two full days, and we're going to be evaluating a number of things: their online platforms, their investment products. We're going to be looking at for all of these banks, how we would with the exception of Southcrest, how we would have cash transactions without a branch. So that's for 3 of the 4 that have submitted. Obviously, there's a lot of new functionalities we're not taking advantage of. We're looking at things like remote capture for checks. But so we'll be evaluating from exactly the criteria that we had in our solicitation, but we're going to be looking at it from, to me, like 2 core areas. One, is it going to assist us with helping do a better job of managing our treasury? In other words, getting a better return on our money, and is it going to streamline the way we do business in the office? So set us up for success in the future to where we're having less reconciliations to do, more automated tools that the staff can use. So I know the chairman likes to tout the fact that we do like to constantly roll out new technology in our organization, which prevents us from growing in people. And I think this would be a large step in making sure that we're able to manage the size of our finance and admin department from a personnel standpoint, because our county is growing. So we need to give our finance department the tools and resources to be able to do a lot of streamlined activities, like things like automating the reconciliation process and those things. So I don't know if we have those dates scheduled yet, but we anticipate having those done quickly. I will add that several of you probably have seen that Colony Bank and Southcrest Bank have announced a merger. We did reach out to Southcrest Bank because since they both submitted, one of them was obviously very robust and is moving forward in the process, and the other one we eliminated pretty much off in the beginning. But we did get some assurance from the higher ups at Colony and Southcrest that whatever that Southcrest submitted would be honored for the duration of what we asked for. And I think we asked for it to remain static for 5 years in our solicitations. So we did get some good news there. So we do have some local participation. And we're very excited about that. We'll share some details when we try to narrow them down, and what we'll probably try to get a better understanding from the board is how involved they want to be in this. In the end, it's going to have to be the board selection, whether or not you want to see just the firm that we rank number 1, or you'd like to see more than one.
How much is Davenport going to be as part of this ranking process? I mean, are they going to provide their own rank and then staff provide a separate ranking?
We're going to do all the evaluations together, so
Okay,
it'll be a
we'll have
unified
one
evaluation.
consolidated.
Yep.
Okay.
And they actually helped us sort through the submissions.
Yeah.
So to where we came up with what we call our initial ranking.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a few very strong proposals, and we got a couple we got 2 that were pretty weak, but 4 that were very strong. So.
Okay. So the juice was worth the squeeze so far.
Well, I can tell you, it will be it'll be an arduous task in the beginning, and we're going to have to be very patient with our finance staff, because they're going to have to go backwards before they go forwards. But once we get implemented, this should really take us a decade and a half or 2 decades forward, because we're really not at this time taking advantage of much of anyone's technology or anyone's investment products, because when you're spread thin all across, I guess we're a nice account for everybody, but we're not anyone's top priority.
Well, the thing that surprises me, and I talked to a couple bankers, is they don't need our business right now. Banks are just flush with cash, so they're not hungry for those deposits.
And keep in mind, government deposits are not
attractive.
They're not, because they have to be collateralized. So they cannot take our deposits and make the types of investments they can make with your own individual deposits. There's a lot of restrictions on how they can invest the money from a city, from a county, from a state agency. So in this type of rate environment, there wasn't as much interest as we had hoped. But with that being said, some of the proposals we got, we were actually very surprised with how aggressive some folks pursued us, so.
And just food for thought, as we go through this transition process, is there, you know, like you said, it's gonna step backward before you catch up. Is there a need to maybe contract some help with some of this, or?
We have with Davenport.
Okay, answer the question. So they'll have some more.
Part of their engagement with the Board of Commissioners is that they're gonna be all the way through implementation of this.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions, concerns?
I have one. I mean, it sounds like we have some assurances with the Colony purchasing Southcrest for like 5 years, but because we are omitting the one bank who is purchasing one of the stronger candidates, I mean, I'm sure y'all are going to have a lot of questions in the interview process, but I definitely would like to hear, just to make sure after that 5-year mark that we aren't reverting back and, you know, we're back to square one. That'd be my only concern.
And one of the things we insist on is we did get that in writing, so we do have that in writing from them. But yeah, that won't be the end of that discussion.
Okay. So for us, is if a commissioner or two is so inclined and wants to participate, we can invite ourselves in and be in the room to hear this exciting discussion.
Always. Now, I would say, I would ask that if you wanted to sit in and see what it was like just for a little while, sure. Otherwise, you'd have to commit to doing basically 2 full days of evaluations. So I think whatever, you know, and once staff narrows it down some, you know, we'll definitely be making a recommendation to you, and then it'll be up to you to decide if you want to see number 1 and number 2, or number 1, 2, 3, or you just want to see number 1. And then, of course, once we get to the end, where staff maybe makes a selection and we're fine to move forward with a recommendation to the board, there's still going to be some discussion about, well, we love this and this and this about your proposal, but we'd like to take this from another person's proposal that will put you. So there'll be a little negotiating in there too.
So we're going to
especially on rates.
So we're going to have an opportunity to have conversation with Davenport.
Yeah, ultimately,
in here,
someone will be in front of you for an approval because we can't approve it.
Right.
So,
okay, all right.
But yeah, we'll keep you updated on the process as we move along, and you can be as engaged as you would like.
Okay. Any finals? All right, next on the agenda is discussion of the 2022 budget schedule. This is, I'm assuming, Jessica's attempt to herd us in the right direction.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, the intent is if, and we would need a motion and an approval on this. Once we get these dates cleared with the Board of Commissioners, then it's going to go back out to the rest of the staff tomorrow as hard and fast deadlines. Yeah.
Chairman, just so y'all know, the dates that Alan and I came up with, the city council has not agreed to those mid-year budget or joint project. Can you hear me? Okay. Or joint project dates. We were just trying to put some stuff together so that we would have some dates, because it's normally very difficult to.
I know. So if we, that's what I'm saying, if we vote on this, or, I mean, we're saying.
You can always modify it.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. We're just putting a little teeth into it. You're gonna go up there and say, our board says this is when they're able to meet. Can you do this?
I told them that today, actually, that we had come up with a budget calendar, and that y'all would be looking at it tonight, and we would get with them as soon as we got approval from y'all to move forward.
And Mr. Chairman, if the board would like, we can, the staff can provide y'all with calendar invites to these, so you wouldn't. You'd have your paper copy, but once you adopt them, we'll go ahead and send the calendar invites out to you so that you'll have them on your calendar.
Yeah.
I know that many of you rely on that, as I do.
Yeah. We gotta start somewhere.
That's right.
Might as well say, okay.
Throw the door, and then the city will throw one back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't leave it open-ended. We'd never get there.
Yeah.
So you have a recommendation for staff for this, to adopt this calendar as our budget?
I'll make a motion to adopt this calendar, and subject to change.
And I'll second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Jessica?
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Wrap this up. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, my report is lengthy and detailed this time, and I really need to add another item to it. So I'm gonna cover an item that's not on there only because it's fresh as of yesterday, and I wanted to share some of the information with the board, and then I'll move into just maybe potentially questions on what's remaining on there. And I know a lot of you are involved in some of the projects that I'm reporting on. But what is not included in the report, and I think I sent it to you for the minutes, but the census released their data yesterday. Had any of the board members had an opportunity to look at that and see that?
I looked at, today I went online and tried to look at it. It did, I mean, are those numbers final? I mean, you know, it looks like we lost population and from what I was looking at.
Were you looking at the county level?
Yes.
No, okay, yeah. So let me get through this and we'll talk about that at the end, because what I heard yesterday that data wasn't available yet. So then I'd be interested to see what you looked at. So what was released yesterday when I was on the call was from 10 to 20, the U.S. grew in population by 22 million, an increase of 7.4%. I'm just going to hit some highlights. I won't belabor all this, but the most populous state still remains California. The least populous state still remains Wyoming. California almost 40 million, Wyoming 500,000. The state that gained the most numerically was Texas, up 4 million. The fastest growing state was Utah, up 18.5%, or increase of 3.2 million. Puerto Rico was down 12%, so I found that interesting. Let's see. So just a little background. So after the 1790 census, each member of the House represented about 34,000 residents. Since then, the House has more than quadrupled in size from 105 to 345 seats. Each member will represent an average of 761,169 people, according to the 2020 census. So just our representative alone will have nearly 750,000 constituents. Texas will grow in 2 seats in the House of Representatives. 5 states will gain 1 seat: Colorado, Florida, Montana, North Carolina, and Oregon. 7 states will lose 1 seat, and they are as follows: California, Illinois, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And the remaining states, including Georgia, will not change. So get into the Commissioner Ellington's question about the other data. According to the press release, and they didn't cover anything local in 2 hours of dialogue yesterday. According to the press release, redistricting data include the local area counts states need to redraw or redistrict legislative boundaries. Due to modifications to the processing activities, COVID-19 data collections delays, and the Census Bureau's obligation to provide high-quality data, states are expected to receive redistricting data by August 16th. And by the full redistricting data with toolkits for ease of use will be delivered by September 30. And I guess that's why I think in an interview yesterday, the Speaker of the House here in Georgia I think they originally said they were going to have a special session in September, and he said it's going to be more like November now when they have a special session. So with that, I hadn't had the opportunity to look at or dive into the individual local tables, but if they're out there, I'm looking forward to reviewing it.
I viewed it today, and I drilled into it, and you can go in it by county. You know, I got basically that same information you did as the front page, but then as I drilled into it by county. But when I seen the information, it just the median income had increased, but the population. So I just don't. I didn't believe those numbers, I just,
Yeah.
those numbers weren't correct. It was showing 26,000, in our last census in 2010, it was over 27,000, so.
Hmm.
I just, maybe those numbers just weren't correct, or if they were, I don't know where that data was coming from.
Yeah. So I guess we won't really know about redistricting for our, for state, senate, and the representatives until they convene, until the state legislature convenes in November. Yeah. But on an ACCG call, they said to anticipate any redistricting local legislation for cities and counties would be in the 2023 cycle. So I guess because of the timeliness of this data and what they're saying is that they're not going to deliver it to the states until August. If the data shows that the county or the city needs to be redistricted in any way, we won't really know until later. At least that's what they're saying here. So.
But we'll know pretty quick about redistricting for Congress.
Yes. The one thing that I did hear in a news release that New York was one of the states that lost a seat
By 89.
by 89 people. So it's my understanding there's probably going to be litigation involved with that.
A recount.
So,
But then they said that the Census Bureau was standing behind their numbers too. So,
yeah.
There you have it.
But the South, if you saw that, Commissioner Anthony, the South grew by 10.2%, and I think it was the highest growing region again. However, it didn't grow as large as it did in the 2010.
did it say how many Georgia grew by as a group?
Almost 10 million. I know it was 10 million more than
It
was.
did, and I should have. I
It
didn't
doesn't
notate that, but
They
it
say they
is in
moved
that
in for the
data.
election.
Those
They'll move
numbers
back
were
out.
they're legal.
Right, it was 10 million more than it was 10 years ago.
And Mr. Chairman, with that, there's a lengthy update from EMC. It's very detailed.
Roads.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also to include the new project, our Po-Biddy Road resurfacing, which is our 2021 LMEG. The information that I read you regarding the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation is in there. I wasn't on our COVID call today, and since I published this report yesterday, I didn't have the updated, so it's still the
What'd you have? Six
mine was
hospitalized?
what's that?
6 hospitalized.
This was as of April 13th, so I
So
wasn't.
today, 6 hospitalized,
Okay,
2 in ICU, 2 in a special care unit.
and the testing percentages?
7%, no change.
Yeah. I think it got as low as 5 at one point, but yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Good news. Another detailed attachment to my report is the meeting minutes. Commissioner Watson, myself, our consultant from Precision Planning, and I don't believe SRS actually attended, but we did a exterior walk around as it relates to some of the items that the board wanted to address while we had a contractor on site. It's a pretty detailed report. So if you have any specific questions about it, it might make more sense for you to take the time to look at it. And if we need additions or deletions, just email them to me. And we're going to try to put a scope of work together. As it stands now, that project is significantly under budget. So the intent would be, while the scaffolding is up and while we have a general contractor, to try to address some of the more immediate needs from an aesthetic standpoint. And you'll see some detailed information about that and what we talked about that in that meeting.
So, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you. So, before we get so far along, they start pulling the scaffolding down, we need to think about it.
Right. Yeah, and there's a,
Yeah.
did you want to
Yeah,
mention
and I mean,
something regarding
if
that?
y'all had a chance to look at it, I mean, after we walked around, it's a lot of just exterior TLC that's not gonna take, it's not gonna take a ton of work to get a little bit of, eye pop. Because, I mean, we were standing down there and all this new tile that's going up, I mean, you're not gonna really even be able to see it when you're on the square. You're gonna see it riding down the road, 19, so. I think a lot of this could go a long way and be a quick, kind of get the whole exterior a good pop to go with our nice new roof. But yeah, definitely take a look at the list, because I think from what I saw, it covered what we discussed. But yeah, if y'all know of anything else.
I didn't see anything on there about the landscape. I know we had this.
I just made a note to myself about courthouse
Right,
landscaping.
because Chairman Allen had brought that up in the past, and I think that's in that scope of work, we need to look at it. And I'm gonna go ahead and open up a can of worms, so everybody can blame it on me.
Thank you.
But,
Here we go.
when you're traveling north through town, you're not gonna be able to see our building. You're not gonna be able to see our roof. Does anybody need me to tell you why?
Nope.
Because we got these overgrown magnolia trees
That need to be cut.
that needs to be, we need to come up with a plan. I don't know what that plan is, but I'm simply saying, we've invested a lot of money.
Well, I mean, it's time.
And we need to look at a landscape. I'm not saying go up there and strip it bare, just have grass, but we we're proud of it. We're gonna be more proud of it, and people need to be able to see it. And we all know that everybody's been scared to say something about the trees, because some people get offended by it. But we do know, when we have proof, that those trees are causing damage to that structure.
And infrastructure.
And the infrastructure running to that building. And I believe that the people elected me to make good decisions. And I think that is a good decision, to look at doing something different with those trees. Or look at a landscape plan.
Well, and I'll jump on that grenade with you. I just made a note to myself, and I'm hoping that some folks are watching and word to get out. I'm open, I'm not about a survey, but if there's anybody in the community who has any thoughts or ideas about the landscaping up there. We've got 3 garden clubs that are very active in our community. We know that we have to do something about those trees. It was just about 4 years ago. I think we spent about $5,000 having an arborist come down and show us how to trim those trees. But the root system is so intrusive. The trees are so large. And then, you look at the shrubbery up there. It's old, dated shrubbery. It doesn't look good. It really needs to, I don't know if it can be trimmed back or what. So I'm putting it out there. If you're watching, or if you hear about this, we're open to suggestions. So, if you got a green thumb and an opinion, I want to hear it, because I don't. And I agree with Commissioner Ellington. We were put in here to make some decisions, and some of them not going to be popular.
Well, I think, excuse me for interrupting, but I think we need to get a landscape architect and redesign it. Get some grass, because there ain't nothing there but roots now. Nothing will grow into those magnolia trees. So.
Well, maybe something we need to talk about at our work session, and maybe put it on our next agenda if we want to put it on an RFP for a landscape architect. We've got a 200th birthday coming up here in just a few years. It sure would be nice to have some pretty landscape and pretty green grass up there.
Yep.
So,
Usable space.
there's variants to magnolias that don't grow quite like that might be more suited. So, anyway.
And I do think the reason why it wasn't under this scope is because this scope was more so what could be done with SRS.
Right.
So that would be outside of SRS.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, I would submit that the current consultant managing the project, one of their core functions is landscape architecture. So. Precision.
Precision?
There was one other item on my report, Mr. Chairman, that was just an update on numbers for our community survey. If you'll recall the one the one we did with code enforcement. 424 responses as of yesterday, and we're going to close it today because it's really slowed down. So,
Okay.
So we'll have a report for the board next time on what the results were. And lastly, no movement on the American Rescue Plan. We did have an all-call ACCG meeting, and some of the NACO leadership was on that call. And I mean, they're lobbying hard. We've sent our questions up and sent the concerns. Like we as a county, as an organization, have expressed to them the types of projects we would like to pursue with those, you know, based on everything we've got on our work list and based on some of the experiences we had with responding to the COVID crisis last year. So we're trying to keep it as broad as possible. So, but no news on that. And then lastly, when you pointed to the camera and talked about our viewership, my son pointed out to me the other day. He's like, "Daddy, did you know you were on YouTube?" I said, "No." Anyway, so somehow it popped up in his feed, and he says, "But you know, you only have 263 subscribers." So share the link and encourage people to subscribe, because it does help us with our.
We have 263 subscribers.
We have.
6 months ago, we would have.
So let me ask something. Will we go back to open public? We're gonna close that down? Or not?
The plan is to continue to have the YouTube, but anybody that wants, and that was one of the things that I was gonna say, that we will open back up, and next meeting we'll have several public hearings. They'll be required to come in.
Right. We won't be allowing the call in.
Okay. All right. That it?
So for my son Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
We'll do better to try to work on our.
We think the glass is half full. He thinks the glass is half empty. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jessica, you have anything else?
The work session for May 5th, is next week. Does anybody have anything in particular that they wanted to add to the agenda? I have that landscaping. And Spur Bluff Committee wanted to know if they could come and give an update. I figured it would be good since we were there, but you let me know what y'all want.
I'll talk to Jason about that and talk to a couple of these guys and figure out that. I mean, we got a lot going on, because I mean that's the day that's really kind of dedicated to Shaka and Rec Department and Spoil Bluff. So.
And Shaka will need an hour at least. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you have pressing a date and won't be there.
My wife is very important to me.
She's important to us too. So. All right. So if anybody has anything else for Jessica, and one thing on what Jason talked about on road paving, you know, right now the plan is to move forward just on Povedi, but I know we've had some one-offs about if there's anything else we want to try to squeeze in while we're out that way, or is there anything that's desperate? Not desperate, but you know,
Makes sense to fix.
Makes sense to fix now. You know. So if you got anything.
Well, I mean, are we gonna add that to the list we currently have running? Currently, I know we looked at, we discussed briefly in our last work session some roads that I had submitted, but I didn't leave with where we at on those. We'll get an estimate.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure the board ever really moved on those specifically.
We didn't. I mean, I wasn't in attendance at the last meeting, but
Yeah.
We didn't do anything at the last meeting about roads. Let's talk about, we'll have a discussion about.
And,
next-
Mr. Chairman, if you also see in that report from EMC, and that, and I don't know if that's where you were going with that, but the engineer was asking if there's any additional, he needs to know now.
If there's any add-ons, we need to get that to them pretty quick, so.
Do we need to
You
get
got
that?
anything you want before then? And then we're at that point now, we gotta go to Jason and ask for the money to do it, so.
Do we need to just submit that in an email, like as soon as possible, or is that gonna be something we discuss at the work
I
session?
think we need to discuss it at the work session.
all right, and I submitted mine a month ago.
Let's,
Yeah.
I mean, if we have a ballpark, you know, one road that kind of pops to me because I'm on it, and then you're on it quite a bit too, is and it's high on our road paving list, and it's not gotten done because of the Highway 19 paving, is Harp Road.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And it's got 2 huge pine trees that the root system is tearing up the road. So those trees would need to come down. We've always talked about Harp Road needing to be done, but we've put it off because of Highway 19. I don't know if we want to try to squeeze that in this year or next year. Food for thought, if there's anything else out there.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Commissioner Ellington?
Absolutely.
Just a quick reminder, those roads were submitted to EMC, but do you care to remind me what they were? So I can follow up again?
Oh, I do, because I can't remember.
Okay. I'll find the email. I'll find the email.
Okay. All right. Mr. English, got anything for us tonight?
No news is good news.
I agree, especially when it comes to your world.
Exactly.
All right. But we've got you busy.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, all right. Mr. Ellington, welcome back.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't have anything tonight. It's catch up night.
All right. Mr. Wild.
I have nothing to.
All right.
The nurses are gone, but, I just, I'll say it publicly that kudos out to all those people that have suffered a lot by taking care of us. And that how grateful I am that we're all healthy. And that's it.
I agree. Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Yeah, I was just gonna offer condolences to Mr. Booker's family. It seemed like he meant a lot to the EMA world. I didn't know him very well, but just condolences.
Yeah, I agree. And believe it or not, I really don't have anything. So appreciate everybody. Look forward to next week's work session down at the Bluff, 9 o'clock. And I look forward to learning more about Georgia Trust and seeing what's out there and coming up with a plan for that. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourn. Thank you.
You can't lose your little thing down there. That's where they come from. Come from that seat right there.
Came from Frank Spraggins.
Frank started.
I may have put this on the meeting.
What do you think about that tonight?
But they had it here,
I can't
they're
believe
selling them houses.
These guys haven't beat me up about
As
that.
fast as they can
About that
build
survey.
them.
Yeah.
And they're buying up land.
I knew exactly where it was going.